Hello everyone and welcome to Zach's Garage. Today we're going to be taking a look around our 25th anniversary Lamborghini Countach, which could quite possibly be one of the most iconic cars ever made. So let's start with the design. Originally designed by Bertone, but improved by Horatio Pagani, who was the head engineer at the time of the 25th anniversary. They included things like the larger rear wing, the larger airboxes, and the flared arches, all to give it a really mean stance. And I think we can all agree, it really does. Now, whether there's an aerodynamic benefit to this wing is debatable, but what's not debatable is it gives it a look that is unmistakable to any other supercar nowadays at all. So while we're back here, let's talk about the performance. But first of all, let's open up the rear engine. Now, this whole section is the engine cover, but this was another design. They had two options. One was the sort of single piece lump that you can see there, or you could have the twin. But with this, you have a little lever down there, and you pull this up to reveal one of the most amazing looking Lamborghini engines ever made. So here we have the 5-litre naturally aspirated V12 engine. Derived from the 5000 QV, it produces around 450 brake horsepower. The top speed is circa 185 miles an hour, depending on how confident you are. And it's doing 0 to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Now, I know those numbers aren't incredibly impressive, considering we've got a Focus RS in the garage that could probably keep up with this to a certain extent. But in the 80s, this was a very big deal. It featured Weber carbs, and it was fairly basic technology in a fairly brutish car, so it made it very difficult to drive. And a lot of people say with the Countach, well, those who have driven it don't particularly like it, but if you're a true enthusiast of driving cars, well, then you probably will enjoy this. It's not easy, but you probably would enjoy it. Now we're inside, I want to show you some of the weird and wonderful features of the Countach, starting with this fabulous manual gated gearbox. Now, anyone who's driven a gated gearbox would probably agree, saying it gives a fantastic, satisfying feel to the driver, for one very good reason. It gives a really loud, really hard clunk when you put it in gear. Now, if you haven't driven a car with a manual gated gearbox, I recommend you go do so, because it is fantastic fun. Also, you have things such as the windows, which don't go down very much at all. They only go down a few centimetres, but, you know, who needs air when you're driving a Countach? You've got to keep warm and, you know, cosy. You also have such things as electric seats. Now, this car did have a seat change, unfortunately, in its history, but the original car would have featured an adjustable seats. There were two different seats. There was the electric ones and the non-adjustable ones. They only moved backwards and forwards. These are sort of, you could possibly call them the racing bucket seats. They're not, but they give a little bit more support, I believe, than the previous seats. These seats feature the cream and black piping leather. Gives a fairly simple look, but it's the way whoever wanted this car originally spec'd it. So the things that people say, well, it's not great to drive, well, I can tell you now what most of the people will complain. Starting off with where the pedals are. Now, the whole car is obviously straight like any other car, but the driving position isn't. The pedals are over towards the passenger, whereas the pillars here are so tight you're having to tilt your neck whilst bending your feet and driving in a straight line. So your whole body's almost contorted into a weird shape just to drive the car. You also have to have very, very thin shoes, and you have to be concentrating probably more on your feet than on the road, because the pedals are so close that if you press the clutch down, and I'm wearing pretty decent driving shoes, and you lift the clutch, it actually gets caught on the leather on the side, and it makes to be a little bit of a jolty experience. You also have absolutely no power steering, which makes it even heavier to drive, but these are all things you sacrifice when you're driving an 80s Countach. Okay, so let's talk about storage for a second, and believe me, it will only be a second because there isn't much at all. You have a compartment here where you can store something small. You have another compartment on both doors where the door handle is. You have a small glove locker and the bonnet in the front. Now, bearing in mind there's a lot of the electrics and the spare wheel in there, there really isn't much, but I'll show it to you now. Now, to activate or to open the front bumper, you have to pull a little cord down here, and you can hear quite a loud click, and let's go open it up. Now, on most supercars nowadays, you have a little lever underneath the bonnet just to open it up. But with this, you simply put your fingers underneath it and lift it up. Now, as you can see, there really isn't anything there. There's the spare wheel, the battery, and believe me, this gets hot, especially if you have a black car in the summer. But it does give a little bit of space for storage, and you could store a small suitcase in there. Now, the one thing that surprises me on classic Lamborghinis is the size of the rear boot. Now, in order to open that, you pull one of the chrome levers, and just through here, you can actually see that it has a really rather large boot. Now, I'm not going to get in it, well, because as I've said in previous videos, I just won't fit. But any average size human would fit in this car. You can store plenty of luggage and, well, I say plenty, you could probably fit a bag and a half, maybe 2 bags in there, but it's surprising. The Miura had the same thing. It had a very deep boot, and there were cuts in the side that sort of looked like it should fit a golf bag. Okay, so if you look down here, you're going to find 4 exhaust pipes. Now, this is the section I think all my viewers love, which is the section where I'm going to start the Countach up, and you can hear this naturally aspirated V12 roar. Okay, so to start this car, you have to insert the key into the ignition, turn it once, and you're instantly greeted by a very loud fuel pump. Then turn the key to start. But it's probably best you head back there so you can properly hear it. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about our 25th anniversary Countach, and just to show you how crazy and how retro these things are. It's an awesome car, and it's one of the best things we have in the collection. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. But from me, it's goodbye, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!